Hey, I'm Brian and this is the Galaxy A52 5G. Today we're going to unbox it and see if it's worth your attention. So let's go! Okay, so I have the 5G version of this phone here. There's also a non-5G version of the Galaxy A52. And there are some differences between the two phones, and I'm going to talk about what those differences are while cracking this open. So I'm just going to grab my knife and break the seals on this packaging. And then we're going to see what we find inside. Of course, you have the phone up top. I'm going to put that to the side. And thankfully, Samsung does still include chargers with their phones. This is a 15-watt charger, but the phone actually does support 25-watt fast charging, which is pretty nice to see, especially at this price point. Though I think that they could have probably also included that faster brick while they're at it. Then you also have a USB-A to USB Type-C cable. I think that this definitely could have been USB Type-C to USB Type-C, but I think these days we have to be thankful for everything that we can get. So I'm going to put that to the side as well. There's nothing more in here. I think in general the box is pretty rudimentary in terms of its design, but up top here you also have all of the documentation, but I think there's nothing really super interesting here except the SIM eject tool and of course all of your paperwork and stuff in there. But let's talk about the phone itself. I think this is a really important device because the Galaxy A51, so the predecessor to this phone, was the best-selling Android phone out there, second only to some of Apple's iPhones. I think the iPhone 11 sold more units. But this phone, even though you probably hear a lot more about the Galaxy S20, S21, all of the flagship phones, is actually a lot more important because it sells a lot more units, so it ends up in the hands of a lot more people. So let's get this plastic wrap of this phone. I don't know why manufacturers always go into the environmental track with this soy ink printing and all of this stuff and then still wrap their phones in tons of plastic. Unlike some previous Galaxy A models, this Galaxy A52 is made completely from plastic, so you have a plastic frame as well as a plastic back. And the back also doesn't feel that premium, but it still is matte, so you don't see any fingerprints on it. And I think this is actually a nice trade-off because all of the other features that you get in here are pretty nice for the price. So of course you have that big 6.5-inch 120Hz OLED screen on the front. I think for 400 euros, a 120Hz OLED screen is actually a really nice addition, and that's something you normally only see on much more expensive phones or on some ones from China. But I think that differentiation to some other phones that may have a similar feature set but come from China with some different software is actually pretty important here, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes as well. In this phone you have the Snapdragon 750G and 6GB of RAM because this is the 5G version. The difference with the non-5G version is that that one only has a 90Hz screen, and it also only comes with the Snapdragon 720 and 4GB of RAM. And for that you also save about 80 euros on the purchase price, which I think is actually a pretty nice deal. I think those phones are pretty balanced if you don't need 5G and if you don't care about the higher performance and the little bit faster screen, which probably shouldn't be that big of a difference, then you can also settle for the cheaper version of the phone. I of course have the slightly better version here, so I can also evaluate all of the additional things that this offers over the regular Galaxy A52, but a lot of the things that I'm going to say in my review, get subscribed so you don't miss that, are also going to apply to the cheaper version. Apart from the general specs of this phone, you also have a camera on the back that is supposed to be pretty good. You have a 64-megapixel main sensor, a 12-megapixel wide angle, as well as a depth camera and a macro camera, which are not really that useful. I don't know why manufacturers keep including these cameras. I think a telephoto would have been a much nicer addition. But apart from all of these specs that it also shares with a bunch of other phones at this price point, it also comes with a lot of other niceties that you don't really see at this price that often. It's IP67 water resistant, so you can take this to the pool, you can get it wet in the rain and it won't die. And it also has stereo speakers on the front as well. And the biggest thing is that Samsung supplies this phone with 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security updates. Normally phones in this price range maybe only get one software update, if you're lucky, because most of the phones that are from Chinese manufacturers, they don't really care about after-sales support. And then when you buy a cheaper phone, that basically means that you have to buy a new phone more often because the support is gone. But with this one, you get the same software support as with flagship phones, which is really nice to see. And I think this is one of the main ways this differentiates itself from other options from Chinese manufacturers, because it does have that support and also the more westernized software and not the Chinese software skins that you usually find on phones from Xiaomi or something like that. I think this phone strikes a really good balance of including enough oomph under the hood, so you actually have that spec thing covered, but on the other hand also some other niceties and great software support, so you also have those things covered as well, which is not really something we saw before on mid-range phones. And because of that, I actually think this could have what it takes to be another bestseller and follow the footsteps of its predecessor, the Galaxy A51, which sold so many units. But of course, that's something we're going to have to see in the full review. I'm going to spend about a month with this phone, and then I'm going to really see if this can hold all of its promises. So get subscribed so you don't miss that video. In general, I have a bit more time now, so I hope to get back into making more videos for you in the coming weeks. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, you know which buttons to press. Don't forget to press that follow button on Twitter, and don't forget your mask when you leave the house. I'm Brian, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.